how to practice your scales as an intermediate guitar player who wants to really finally implement your scales into real-time, confident improvisation. Basically, the first thing, if you really want to learn how to implement your material into practical, real-time musical context, is to first of all stop doing this. Come closer, I will show you. Stop doing this. This is honestly not gonna help you anymore. This is the worst way possible to practice any scale, not just the pentatonic that I was showing you, but if you're practicing like your major scale, for example, like that. Stop doing that. This is not getting you anywhere. If your intention is to really like learn how to apply whatever it is that you are practicing into real-time, confident and fluent improvisation, I really want you to realize that this is the worst way you could practice your scales. So I will show you 3 tips which will help you approach your practicing process through a completely different perspective. All right? Tip number 1. Wow, this is loud. Tip number 1. Every instrumentalist, except from us, of course, electric guitar players, practice their scales in sequences of octaves. You know, you heard this do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, si, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do, right? Every instrumentalist ever will practice their scales like that, whether we're talking about vocalists, trumpet players, saxophone players, piano players. Everyone really spends some time to think and hear the musical context, the notes within the scale. They know like where the scale starts and where it finishes. And I'm not talking about the fretboard here, I'm talking about like the music, the octaves. So basically what I would advise you to do instead is to divide your scales into octave sequences, like, and then, and do this everywhere. And do this everywhere. Like, you need to really be aware to find the music within your shapes. The shapes and the geometrical visual aspect is not the way to go. You need to find the music inside the visual geometry. Now, the second way, you might already know that, but what you will probably not know is that the Cade system is one of the least effective ways if you want to learn, if you want to really implement your material improvisationally. Or to make it even more precise, the Cade system might be good actually, as long as you realize that it is not a 5-position system. C-A-G-E-D, the 5 positions, treat them like 2 positions. What do I mean? I mean that position G here equals position C, and position E equals position D equals position A. I know you're a little bit overwhelmed now. Let me explain this in a more simplified way. We will basically reapproach our relationship with the fretboard with 2 positions. I will call it the front form and the back form. All I want you to do is go to your A notes. For example, we're doing it on the A minor pentatonic, but you can do it on anything that you want. For example, go to all your A notes on the 4 bass strings, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Those 4 A notes on the E string, on the A string, on the D string, and on the G string. And what I want you to do from all those 4 different spots, here, 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 and here, is play your pentatonic starting with the first finger. So you want to create the interval pattern of the pentatonic like that. from A to A, octave to octave. From here, you need to adjust it a little bit here because of the tuning of the guitar. And here. So you need to play the same identical 5 notes, but with different fingerings, but always starting with the first finger. This is what I call the front form of the pentatonic, or of any scale. You can play the front form for your minor scale. But always start with finger 1. This is what I call the front form. In the Cade system, this would have been position E, position A, and position D. But they are really the same thing. They're all front forms. Position E, A, D of the Cade system are front forms. Now, let's go to the second position. I mentioned that there are 2 positions. The second position is what I call the back form. So we will go to the same spots on the fretboard, this one, this one, this one, and this one, the A's, and we will play the back form. So basically we will use finger 3 or finger 4, which will force us to play it, kind of like pushes us to the neck, to the head of the fretboard. So it's like... So you see, like, this one is the back form and pushes us to this direction. That's why we call it back form. And this one is the front form and pushes us to this direction. And you should be able to do the same thing from all your A's. From all your A's. Depending on where you're going to start with finger 3 or 4 or with finger 1. 3 or 4 give you the back form, 1 gives you the front form. Now, why is this important musically? Because this way you will get to decode the fretboard in a much more powerful way. The third tip is actually even deeper and even trickier. It's about playing the right notes at the right time. In music, it's all about playing the right notes at the right time. But the problem is that when we practice scales, usually we don't do that. Think about this. Practice, let's say, for example, your C major scale. Let's move away from the A minor pentatonic and stuff. Let's go to C major scale. The way you will practice your C major scale will be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you will place your C, your root note, not in the beginning of the second bar, but at the fore end of the first bar. Think about, like, I'm playing 8th notes. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't make any musical sense. You forget where is the root note, you forget where is beat 1, the connection between the chord tones, basically the root note, the 3rd, the 5th, and the bar that you are playing over, the beat that you are playing over, is completely gone. So check this out instead. You hear everything is symmetrical. You have your root notes on beat 1 by playing the notes of the scale consecutively. Check this out. I will count the beats out for you. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So on every beat 1, I have the root. Now imagine doing that everywhere in the fretboard. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, you know, everywhere. It gives you access into actually landing on the right notes at the right time. So basically doing it mechanically up and down without thinking about what beat am I in, what chord tone I'm targeting on the beat 1 and stuff like that, is not a musical way to practice your scales. If you practice your scales like that, combining all the stuff that I explained today, like the thinking about where does my octave start, where it ends, my back and front form instead of the 5-position system, and starting on beat 1 by introducing this little enclosure that I showed you, honestly, if you upgrade your process of practicing with those 3 tips, you're gonna see it's gonna be night and day, the progress that you're gonna make. However, it's really important to understand at the same time, having said all of this, that it's actually physically impossible for a serious guitar player who wants to grow seriously as a musician. It's physically impossible, if you really want to up level, to rely on free online lessons that you find on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, whatever, name it what you will, and expect to get bombarded by various different people from throwing you from one point to the other point to the other point, and expecting to grow in a structured and solid way as a musician this way. It's physically impossible. Even with good lessons like this one, you have no guidance, you have no roadmap, no accountability, nothing. You just have little insightful tips that, you know, it might be one from me today, then tomorrow you might see from another person, the day after from another person, and those concepts will not even interconnect with each other, and all you end up doing is getting bombarded with information, having no structure, no clarity, no roadmap, and of course it's hard, almost impossible to grow musically if that is your approach, the freebies, the online freebies. Okay, so if you really if you really appreciate the stuff that I showed you, and if you realize that this is just like a tiny little glimpse, a tiny speck of dust compared to the overall stuff that I could show you and I could give you weekly feedback on and assess and evaluate your playing on a weekly basis or even on a daily basis and give you feedback regularly, then feel free to reach out. Honestly, if worst case is that we realize that, because what I'm doing is quite specific in the Modern Guitar Liberation Academy, is we realize it's not a good fit. No problem. I will still be happy to stay connected with you. But in the good case scenario, we realize that it's a good fit and that I could actually help you fulfill your musical destiny in a way, reach your full musical potential. The stuff I showed you today is just a little glimpse of my overall method and the stuff that I could help you with in order for you to reach your full musical potential. My name is Konstantin. I run the Modern Guitar Liberation Academy, and for now, goodbye from Indonesia.